Hello there, beautiful people, friends and family. I hope you all are well and doing fantastic. A very warm welcome to you all to Nanaba's Kitchen. Today I am presenting to you a whole red snapper that's fried crispy. You can have that in place of turkey or whatever it is you're planning on having this season. We're using very few ingredients because we want the flavor of the fish to shine. So you know it's gonna be top notch in that flavor department. Can't wait to begin. Let's wash our hands so we can start. First thing we're gonna do, beautiful people, is to trim the fins of the fish.
And I like to do this for a few reasons. Safety is number one because the tip of the fins tend to be really pointy and sharp. Also, I like to leave a bit of them on for presentation reasons, and they also fry really crispy, which is absolutely delicious. So why trim it all off? But if you don't like the fins, you can take them completely off.
So the fish has already been gutted, gills removed. The scales have also already been removed. And what I have just done is trimmed some of the fins off, left a significant amount on because when it's fried, they lift up and look really elegant. And presentation, as you know, is everything. Next thing we're gonna do is score the fish.
And to score your fish, friends, you're going to need a knife that is very sharpened. As you can see, my fillet knife is cutting through this fish like it's nothing. Or perhaps not nothing, but something like a hot knife through butter, because you do not want to bruise your fish or disturb the meat itself. It can tear apart really easily because this fish is very, very delicate. So you want to treat it with tender, loving care. And I made some really deep incisions, and you'll see why when the fish is fried later on, it'll be easier to eat. And to see what I mean by that, please keep on watching. And if you're having fun so far, please give me a thumbs up. I have some kosher salt, a quarter teaspoon of white pepper that's crushed. You can also substitute with black pepper. And I have a quarter teaspoon of granulated garlic. That's all I'm going to use to spice and season this fish up. I combine all three in one bowl to create a dry rub of sorts. It's a lot easier to work with that way. And I proceed to sprinkle the fish with it. And the fish today is 2.5 pounds in weight, so it's substantially huge. So you want to season and spice to your preference. It is a matter of preference at this point, especially when it comes to the salt. So I am opening up those scoring incisions I made and making sure that my dry rub goes into it, directly into it. So it's going to season this and spice it up all the way to the bone. And I can feel the bone as I go in with my index finger to make way for the spice to enter the meat of the fish. And that's how deep these incisions are. Very important. You'll see. Keep on watching.
We're going to need the essence of a herb, and today's choice is good old rosemary from my backyard. We're going to place it in the belly and insert it through the roof of the head and out the mouth to stabilize it so when we fry it, it doesn't escape. This fish is ready for the fry.
And I'm using peanut oil to fry today. And as you can see, the rosemary I placed in there is sizzling, so the oil is ready. Now I'm using peanut oil because it can take on very high heat levels, which is exactly what I need to fry this fish. So I place it in gently, being careful to avoid the oil from splattering onto me. All right, so there you have it. I'm going to fry it until the skin becomes nice and crispy, but it will leave the inner layer nice and moist. That's exactly what I'm going for, and the peanut oil is going to help us do exactly that. Keep on watching, friends. It's looking good already. So I have flipped it just to give the same treatment to the other side. It's been about 4 minutes of frying on the one side, and I only flipped it, pretty much took it out of the oil immediately after flipping it, because this is a deep frying after all. So both sides were frying at the same time. If you're not subscribed to this channel, that crispy skin on that fish should move you to do so right now. All right, so I'm making something called pico de gallo. Pico de gallo is really chunky salsa. And so I have some tomatoes that just went in, and I'm also adding some jalapenos that I have seeded and chopped. This is some red onion, same treatment. And I also have some red bell pepper, which is not a traditional ingredient to add to pico de gallo, but I like the sweetness it brings to the bowl. And I'm also going to add my cilantro, which you would definitely want in a pico de gallo. But you can substitute with any herb of choice if you do not like cilantro, also known as coriander leaves. And I also have some lemon juice that I am drizzling into the pico de gallo. Lime is preferred, but I didn't have any, so you can use that for sure. I'm seasoning with some salt to taste, a little bit of crushed black pepper as well. And the lemon, as you know, is going to bring us that tang, which will balance all the flavors in the pico de gallo. Plus the citrus flavor also pairs well with the fish. Now I have made a Thai chili and garlic infused oil. So it's a chili and garlic oil that I am now drizzling onto my pico de gallo. That is an optional step, but I really wanted that chili and garlic essence in there.
Beautiful people, just like that, our fish is fried, crispy, and delicious. Now we're just going to mix up our pico de gallo.
And this pico de gallo has been given some character from that garlic and chili infused oil. So it takes it from ordinary to, it gives it pizzazz. yeah, you see what I mean. Now this is the money moment I promised from the beginning. Moist inside. We've already confirmed how crispy it is on the outside. Now this makes for easy eating experience. Picked it right from the bone. That's all from the scoring. The food I grew up eating, I remember, was always intensely flavorful. Mostly prepared by my mom and my grandmom, who both taught me how to cook. I remember a lot of the time when my mom needed to throw flavor at savory dishes that had a tomato sauce or a tomato base, or those that didn't even have a tomato base, such as the spinach dip or abumu, even jollof rice. Her secret was canned mackerel in tomato sauce. Friends, today I bring you the homemade, fresh, beautiful version. Greetings, blessings, much love to you all, and let's begin. So you need some Roma tomatoes, and I separate the seeds and the juice from the flesh. We also need 1 green bell pepper, 1 large red bell pepper. We also need some scallions or green spring onions, some shallots, ginger, and we also need 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to include some heats by adding 1 habanero chili. Now I'm going to be adding these peppers, which mimic the flavor of petite bell chilies. We call them paposhito in Ghana. Now I do remove the seeds from these because they tend to be bitter. And for the herbs, I've chosen to use fresh rosemary, but you may use the dry. And also we're going to include 4 small bay leaves. That's it. All of these ingredients are very aromatic, and they're going to bring amazing flavors. So the seeds, the juice, and the flesh within the Roma tomatoes that I separated, I'm going to crush them, forcing just the juice through this colander turned into a strainer in this instance. And all we are left with is the juice, so I discard only the seeds. Beautiful. Now let's work on the mackerel. I picked this up from the fishmonger as usual. and they have complimentarily cleaned it for me already, so it's been gutted. And since there are no scales on the fish, all I do is wash them again and cut them into steaks whose width are about 1.5 inches thick. And to the fish I add some onion powder, crushed black pepper, some garlic powder, some salt to taste, and you do need to season it well at this stage. Now I'm also going to be adding some Worcestershire sauce. I think I didn't butcher the name this time. If you agreed, please drop a comment. I have always had a hard time with that one. Now I'm drizzling some olive oil onto this because it is a marinade after all, as I usually say. And make sure you stir everything together. Now with the Worcestershire sauce, you can always substitute that with your Maggi sauce. That'll work great, or even soy sauce. Now I'm bringing some citrus flavor here because that freshens everything. So I'm using the zest of 1 lime, and you can use lemon if that's what you have. And if you have the herb thyme, you may use that because that also offers citrus notes. You do need your citrus notes to freshen and lighten the flavors because mackerel is extremely flavorful due to the high fat content. It is rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which are heart healthy, very important for your heart health. So we start with olive oil in the pan, and then I add the onions, the scallions, and the shallots. And what I'm doing is just slightly caramelizing them because caramelization, as I always say, is equal to loads of flavor. Take those out and then caramelize your onions also. Just slightly caramelize them because we want to optimize all the flavors here. All these ingredients are fresh, so we want to kick it up quite a notch with caramelization. That's the technique we're using today. Now, after the onions and the peppers, I add my ginger, the garlic, the rosemary, and also my white peppercorns into the hot oil and cook it for just about 20 seconds until they start blooming, until I start smelling them. Then I go in with the flesh of the tomatoes. And I'm going to cook this down on gentle heat up until the tomatoes start tenderizing and up until I start seeing some of the juice from the tomatoes separating from the flesh. And there is exactly what I'm talking about. So you see that the skin of the tomato has become tender. It's almost detaching itself from the flesh. That's exactly what you want, and that shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. Done. Take that off of the heat and let it cool down. And then proceed by blending all of your cooked ingredients. The onions, the peppers, as well as the tomatoes, including the oil you cooked it in, and all of the juices into the blender. And the goal is to blend these ingredients till you arrive at a silky, velvety, smooth texture. If your blender is not powerful enough to do so, then you must strain, unless you don't mind that texture. Now, pour the tomato juice into the pan with the blended ingredients and add your bay leaves. Stir to combine evenly and cook on low heat for the next 15 minutes with the lid on. Now, before the lid goes on, you must clean the size of your pot if that's applicable to you, because that's just going to dry up and become a waste. And throw the lid on. The lid must be on completely so that it can come to a boil sooner. Just like so. And that took about 15 minutes. Now you want to go and remove the lid and create a vent in order for some of the steam to find a route to escape, so that the sauce can start reducing, just like so. So in about 30 minutes after venting the lid, you should find some of the oil resurfacing on the top. Go back and stir it and then season. You taste first and then you season after that. We haven't added any seasoning at all to our sauce, so add your salt or your seasoning of preference to taste, and then remove the bay leaf because they are done with infusing their flavor. Thank you very much, Miss or Mr. Bay Leaf. I think it's Mr. Bay Leaf. Now we're going to add some paprika. Now this is regular paprika. It is not smoked. We need a tablespoonful of it. So paprika is really dehydrated red bell peppers that are turned into powder. Now we did add red bell peppers to start with. Those were fresh. We need that seasoned taste, that seasoned sweet taste. And you get that when you dehydrate your ingredients, the flavors become more intensified. And that's what you get from adding the smoked paprika. It also helps with the color. I have added some more of the Worcestershire sauce because we only added it to the fish in the beginning. The sauce needs some of that. And if you have your Maggi sauce, please add it then. All right. And keep that in mind when you're adding your salt because that has salt in it. All right. So now it's time to introduce the fish to the sauce. And the sauce is tasting amazing. Way better than the canned. And when you give this recipe a shot, make sure it is a huge batch, because this recipe is not going to fail you, friends. It is tried and true. Those fresh ingredients are everything. Yes, make sure you pour the juices from the fish into the pot as well, and then submerge all the fish pieces and cover it completely with a lid. No venting, still on low heat. You're going to cook for the next 30 minutes. During those 30 minutes, the fish will become poached. So we are essentially poaching the fish in this flavorful sauce. During that time too, there will be that exchange, very important exchange of flavors from the sauce into the fish and from the fish into the sauce. And it's all going to become unified. It's going to become one amazing, lovely, tasty dish. The fish holds itself together. That's one thing I love about mackerel. And see how smooth the sauce is, and a little bit of the oil has also formed on the top. So after 30 minutes of poaching, you're going to remove the lid and let it continue to simmer down for 10 more minutes on low heat, and you're done. That's all it took, friends. And just look at this beautiful mackerel and tomato sauce. Friends, this was so good. Mackerel is one flavorful fish. I love mackerel. So besides grilling it, besides frying it, this is another approach, another rendering of this amazingly delicious fish. Give this a shot. Like I said, make it in a huge batch. If you make it in a small batch, you will regret it. The best way to store these is by canning them in a mason jar, and that is another video all on its own. Canning is another story altogether, and we can tackle that on another day. But on this day, what I did was I pour them or portion them into these glass containers with airtight lids, and they get stored in the refrigerator and freezer. Now, a few ways to use your mackerel and tomato sauce is to just add it to some jollof rice. So I've made my jollof stew already, and I have added some of my mackerel and tomato sauce into it. So on this occasion, what we're using the mackerel and tomato sauce for is as a seasoning to bring more flavor to the jollof rice. Believe me, it makes the jollof rice so tasty. It gives it a special touch, a touch of class. So add your rice to it, stir it, and cook your jollof rice as you normally would, and you will be serving an amazingly tasty jollof rice that your guests and your family, your friends will always remember. They will be wondering what the heck you threw in there that made it so good and so special. So this is just one out of the million ways you can use your mackerel and tomato sauce. It is amazing. Now, another way is to add it to your abomu or your dips. So I have this spinach dip, which we call it abomu, kuntumri abomu in Ghana. So on this occasion, it is not only bringing flavor, but also extra protein. There are a million and one ways to use this mackerel in tomato sauce, and hopefully we can bring you more videos to show you. Now let's take a look at the texture of the fish itself and see how velvety, silky, smooth the sauce is. The sauce is, I mean, you can drink it. It's so good. And the bone of mackerel is naturally very soft. And when cooked on low heat for a prolonged period of time, it becomes even softer to where it is fork tender. Now look at the fish. Mackerel is so delicious. Anyhow, I love it grilled, I love it fried, I love it roasted, and in this mackerel sauce, it might just end up being your favorite. Thank you so much, friends, for watching. I hope you did learn a thing or two and are inspired to try the recipe. Tilapia is loved very much in my household, as I know it is in many others. And I have been given that honorable job of presenting it in exciting ways each time I have the opportunity in order to spruce things up in the variety department. So here is one of the ways: tilapia stew. We're going to start with a dry rub consisting of garlic powder, crushed white pepper, cayenne pepper, ginger powder, cumin, all-purpose seasoning, and some salt. Stir together and you have a very tasty dry rub, which we're going to rub onto our tilapia pieces. The cumin I added is probably the most overpowering ingredient in this dry rub, so a little bit goes a long way. And cumin is perfect for fish like tilapia, which can have that algae taste. All right, now this here is tilapia that is wild caught, so it doesn't have that algae taste, but if that's the only kind of tilapia you have access to, then cumin is the way to go. So make sure that you are rubbing in this dry rub into all the crevices of this tilapia, which has been washed thoroughly with some lime juice and soaked in some ginger juice and lime zest. It really freshens up the tilapia. I have showed how I do that in a few videos I have shared previously. Then you must allow the tilapia to marinate 30 to 45 minutes at room temperature prior to frying. I'm going to be frying it today in some avocado oil that has gone into the wok. I let it come to a sizzle and then I place in my aromatics: rosemary, scallions, scotch bonnet chili, and some fresh thyme. Tilapia needs aromatics so bad due to that distinct fresh water character it presents with most times. I have added 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour, which is going to serve the purpose of preventing the fish from sticking while it's frying. It will also help it to fry super crispy, which is what we are aiming at. Now the oil is hot enough so the fish gets placed in there safely. And then we will allow the fish to fry until crispy. We will have to go in at some point to turn them. Once the aromatics have done their job of infusing their aroma into the oil, you can take them out before they begin to burn. And here we are turning the fish and you can see it is fried super crispy. And what makes me happiest is the fact that even though it's fried crispy on the outside, it is still moist inside. That is win-win every day in Anaba's kitchen. All right, so take those out. And yes, it is important that you fry in batches. You don't want to shock the oil temperature by overloading it with too much fish at once, okay? So go back and fry the next batch and we are almost there. Our tilapia are done frying to perfection. You can actually see that crunch. It is perfect. It is now time to cook the stew, and for that we're going to need a base, which is a fresh blend of scallions, scotch bonnet chilies, and serranos, just like that right there. And in some of the oil we cooked the fish in, we pour in thinly sliced onions, red onions that is, and fry them until they are caramelized, as that will bring us even more flavor. Which should take about 3 to 4 minutes. And you want to go in and give it a stir from time to time so you're not burning part of the onions. And here is the base. We just blended. I love the way it just so elegantly allowed itself to just descend into that hot oil. That was beautiful to see. If you agree or don't agree, please leave me a comment. Drop one in that comment section. I love that. That was the money moment for me. So we're going to keep frying this until we have lost most of the moisture, and then we go in with our minced ginger and garlic, followed by some all-purpose seasoning which resembles your bouillons. I've also added white crushed pepper. The last thing that just went in is some curry powder, which brings a depth of flavor you will adore in this dish right here. Keep stirring, keep cooking for the next 2 to 3 more minutes, and add your salt to season to taste. We have been frying this mixture since adding the onions for 10 minutes, and now we're going in with our tomato sauce, homemade and canned, with the potential to last up to a year sitting at room temperature in your pantry or your countertops, with no need for fridge or freezer storage. Win again. All right, so you're going to stir that in to completely combine both mixtures. Then you're going to place the lid on and allow it to cook on medium heat until the oil resurfaces. That should take about 5 minutes to 7 minutes. There is what we're looking for. Now take the lid off and allow it to fry down to concentrate these beautiful flavors. That should take another 5 minutes or so. You want to stir it though, just to make sure that the bottom isn't catching. Then you want to turn the heat down to its lowest setting to reduce splatter. If it continues to splatter even at the lowest heat setting, then you will need to invite your splatter guard to the party. All right, so we continue to cook 5 to 7 more minutes from this point on. Now this dish does have a good kick to it from the scotch bonnet chilies, but you can always adjust that to your taste. I am now adding some smoked paprika, which is a very clever way of finishing the stew, because it brings a smokiness that will help balance that kick, that heat, and it will also help to round every flavor in the pot up. And that depth of flavor I'm referencing is the kind that tricks your mind to feel that this stew has been cooked over a long period of time to develop those intense flavors. Cook 2 to 3 additional minutes after adding the smoked paprika, stirring occasionally. And what you want to see is that key feature when the oil resurfaces. It is telling you that a lot of the moisture has cooked out, okay? And the stew is cooked, really. So now we're going to start submerging the fish into the sauce. We're going to make sure that each fish is smothered with this goodness. Yes, indeed. Friends, please don't let this thing control you. You control this fish. You control the fish. Oh, you tell the fish where you're going in this stew. Yes, I'm placing you right there. And then you also there. This is where you belong, okay? Smother it. Yes, you are the boss. And then cover it and let it cook 2 more minutes just to marry the flavors and go in with some garnish. I used fresh red onions today. I cut into rings. It not only brought the garnish, but it also brought some crunch. And here we go. And today we served our tilapia stew with rice and green peas. And friends, I tell you, it went down so well. I cannot even find the words to tell you how well it went down right now because my mouth is watering all over again. My husband especially enjoyed this the most. When we first met, he wasn't very tolerant of spicy food, but he's hanged out way too long with me now. He is into it more than I am. So the spiciness is there. That kick is there, but it is very, very cleverly mellowed by all the other ingredients, especially the acidity from the tomatoes, the sweetness from the onions, and we use a lot of onions, and also that finishing touch with the smokiness from the smoked paprika. Oh, absolutely mellowed it and brought that depth in the best way possible. So it is chop time, as you can see. So we have dished some of that rice and peas onto the plate and 1 piece of tilapia, which has clearly soaked in a lot of this smothering sauce. And tagging along is some fried sweet plantains that are spiced, known as kele wele. I hope that you have learned a thing or two and are inspired to try the recipe. Make it a great day.
Hello there, beautiful people. Welcome to Nanaba's Kitchen. It is a beautiful day out here today, and I hope you are having a fantastic day. So what do we have on the menu? We're making grilled tilapia, oven grilled that is, and we know that tilapia is freshwater fish. Therefore, it needs a platform to shine. How are we going to achieve that? By all the flavors we throw at it. So I am here in my garden. I have this pot that is sprouting bountifully with this fresh rosemary. So I'm going to take a sprig of it. This will do. We have gathered all the ingredients we need, of course, with the main ingredient being the tilapia. I have 4 pieces of it, and they are all whole, cleaned already. Scales have been removed, and I just need to remove the mouth of that one right there. And then we have our aromatics. These rosemary have been washed, and I also have my spring onions. We're going to use the green and the white all together. These are going to be all of the aromatics we need, including these right here, which I have pre-gathered. I need some ginger, I need some shallot onions, and also some heat and the fragrance of these chilies. These are ripened serrano chilies, and you can substitute with your habaneros or even jalapenos. And then we also have some garlic, a few cloves of that. Now, we're going to roast these aromatics, and so I have poured in some olive oil into this pot. We need a substantial amount of olive oil. Why? Because it's also going to act as a non-stick factor in cooking our oven grilled tilapia. So first, our rosemary sprig is going to go into the olive oil. So I put that in there first, so the rest of them can weigh it down and keep it on the bottom, because I really wanted to have contact with the bottom of the pot. Now for our spring onions, just chop them roughly. Now for my ginger, what I typically like to do is cut them into discs. okay, or tiles. If we want to be really technical here, cut them into tiles, and it's cutting it across the grain, or across or in the opposite direction of the strands in it. All right, that also goes in. Now we also need our shallots. I'm just going to cut them into half, just like that. And then in the oil it goes. Now I also have my chilies. These have fragrance and they also have heat. So you can use the amount that you can tolerate, okay? So those go in, and then followed by the garlic. Okay friends, so we have our pot on medium heat for 15 minutes with the aromatics going to gently infuse their flavor into the olive oil. It's going to be the most aromatic olive oil you've ever encountered. Stick around, we're going to move to the workstation and work on the fish next. So our fish is like 98% already cleaned, thanks to our fishmonger. Only thing I need to do is finishing touch. I like to cut the mouth of the fish off just because that's how my mom taught me how to clean my tilapia. So to do that, I just use my shears, open the mouth, and snip it off, just like that. It's been gutted already, and the gills have already been removed. So I'm going to make 3 incisions, about 1 inch apart. These incisions are necessary to allow all those beautiful aromatics to penetrate the fish to the bone and cook it beautifully. Fish is so firm, you know it's very fresh. So when you press on it, it doesn't leave an indentation. It bounces right back. That's how you know your fish is firm. Your fish is fresh. Alright friends, so it's been about 20 minutes total, and we have a nice caramelization happening here. Look at those. And the oil is well infused with these aromatics. So I'm going to turn the heat off and let this cool down. Give it maybe 20 more minutes, and then we'll proceed to the next step. Alright, so our oil is beautifully infused. Our ingredients are nicely roasted. So I'm going to retrieve those, and they're going to go into the blender. Now the oil goes in. You can see how infused this oil is. I add about half of the oil, and the rest I will reserve. It's just gonna sit and rest till I have use for it. Next step, friends, we need to season. That is the next very important step. So I have some crushed black pepper and some salt to taste. And then I have my complimentary homemade chicken seasoning. that goes in, and you can substitute this with your bouillons. Okay, you need that umami in this recipe. Now we're ready to blend. Babe, do you want to taste this?
Yes.
All right. What do you think?
Some good stuff.
Let me taste it. Wow. Roasting your ingredients prior to turning them into a marinade like this makes it all the more special. Friends, you have to absolutely take this route next time.
And be sure, friends, please, to use a healthy kind of oil. You saw that I used quite a substantial amount, and that was done on purpose because extra virgin olive oil is heart healthy and has the ability to increase your good cholesterol, the HDL cholesterol, and lower your bad cholesterol, which is the LDL. So that's like brilliance in a marinade. And I don't think I have made marinade as great tasting and as nutritious as this one right here. If you don't like tilapia, believe me, make this kind of marinade, roast your aromatics, and use your olive oil to have a win-win situation. Pour it onto your tilapia before you grill it. Let it sit for 1 hour, as I am going to be doing here. And I'm telling you, you will have a change of heart. Brilliance.
All right, friends. We're ready to grill these beauties. So what we're gonna do first is pour these vegetables. You know how I like to create that bed, so my juices don't get wasted. They get caught in the vegetables as the fish grills. These become nicely caramelized and juicy. Oh, it's gonna be amazing. So I just have some bell peppers, some onions, and that's about it. So the fish now gets laid on the wrap.
And I would like to suggest really quickly that you can substitute the olive oil with a nut oil such as almond oil, that's healthy too, or avocado oil. So whatever healthy oil you have readily available would
The rest
do.
of the marinade I have in here, I'll reserve it for when I have to flip the fish. It is time for these beauties to go into the oven, which I have been preheating. It's on the broil option. You all know I love using that because it's going to really create some really great caramelization on the presentation side of the fish. And at some point we're going to retrieve it, flip it, put it back in. So I have left the remnants of the marinade. I'm going to use it and coat the fish or baste it when I flip it. So let's get going.
And in the oven it goes for 15 minutes using the broil option. And if you watch my videos, you will know usually when I am grilling my fish in the oven, I prefer to use the broil option. And why? It's because the heat mainly comes from the top part of the oven, which helps it to hit the surface of the item you have in there, and that creates a sear which seals in the juices of whatever item you have inside the oven. And that's exactly what we're going for. We don't want our fish to dry out. We want it to gain caramelization and still have the juices inside the fish without it all draining out and leaving it dry. That will happen if you bake the fish. All right, so use a high heat, mainly coming from the top, which is called the broil option, and then flip it and you see that the other side is not cooked. And once you have flipped all your fish, and I'd really like you to take a close look right now, see the juices still retained inside the fish. We didn't lose it. Most people have this misconception that the broil option causes loss of moisture. That was your proof right there. The moisture is still inside the fish. It does quite the opposite. Try it. You'll love it. You'll love it. It's almost like charcoal grilling your fish, really. you're going to get those caramelizations, and you will have a smokiness also to it. It is just going to be nothing short of perfection pretty soon. So you're going to baste the uncooked portion with the rest of the marinade and throw it back into the oven. Allow it to continue to broil for 12 to 15 minutes. Make sure that you're keeping an eye on it because the oven is extremely hot right now, so it might take a shorter time. Okay, so keep an eye on it and make sure that you get those golden brown bits, and that's your indication that your fish is cooked through. Remove it and it is ready to serve, just like that right there. You see the fish is nice and plump. You can tell it's still juicy. No dryness has happened. Now, this bed of vegetables I'm going to throw back into the oven because I really need it to also get some caramelization, because caramelization is really flavor. I always say that. So throw it back into the oven for maybe 5 minutes only and get those also caramelized. And it'll be all complete. Done. Ready to serve. Now, take a moment and soak it all in. Look at the olive oil, these crunchy caramelized vegetables, the perfect accompaniment, and the most gorgeous, most comfortable bed these tilapia can ever lay on. You know, your girl is a happy one right now. Yes. I just cannot wait to serve my family this. Just perfection. Wow. It just appeals to all the senses there are. I hope you get to try this recipe. Greetings, beautiful people. Welcome to Nanaba's Kitchen. Today I am bringing you one of my husband's favorite ways of enjoying fried tilapia. Let's make crispy fried tilapia smothered with a tangy gravy or sauce, inspired by Swahili Samaki wa Kupaka. You're going to need tamarind for this, and this is tamarind that is still inside the pot. So I remove the shells and we're going to soak it next with some hot water. The soaking process helps to soften the flesh of the tamarind, making it easier to release it or remove it from the seeds. This should take about 30 minutes after you cover it with a cling film. After 30 minutes, the water should also go from hot to workable, where you can go in with your hand and remove the fruit. The fish is ready, cleaned, and ready to go. So we're combining some crushed white pepper, all-purpose seasoning, and some salt, and that is all she wrote, to coat the fish before we fry it. All right, so we're just going to season and spice it up with just these 3 simple ingredients. The all-purpose seasoning can be substituted with your bouillons. For this recipe, you're going to need 3 medium-sized tilapia, cleaned and gutted. I have also scored them with just 3 scores on each side so the dry rub penetrates it to the bone before we fry them, okay? So I'm just coating it nicely and generously and evenly on both sides, inside the gut and also the head area, making sure that the dry rub also goes into the scoring incisions I have made. I also cut the mouth of my tilapia off. We just were taught to do it that way by our mothers and our culinary instructors, okay? Whomever those people might be. You have to cut the fish's mouth off, all right? You don't want this fish talking to you. All right. So there is that. They are all coated nicely. Don't forget to go inside the belly. That is a very important area to coat with your dry rub. Also, we're going to mince some ginger here. And here's how I go about doing that. All right, I thinly slice them into thin slabs first, and then I turn them around and mince them finely. And I do likewise with some shallot onions, some garlic, and also 1 Scotch bonnet chili. This is all being prepped while the fish is marinating, and I just let it sit out at room temperature for about 30 minutes. Our tamarind is done soaking. The water is cool enough to where I can work with it without it burning me. And also the fruit or the flesh is nice and soft, so it's going to be easy to separate the seeds from it. Now let's talk about why I think this recipe is so perfect for fish like tilapia. Tilapia can either come from the ocean or from freshwater. The freshwater, as I've mentioned on several of my tilapia recipes I've shared on this platform, can have a distinct freshwater taste because the tilapia in freshwater feeds on algae, so they end up tasting like that algae. And the great thing is that algae taste can be masked depending on the ingredients you choose to use. And tamarind is one great way, one sure way to achieve that. I have strained the fruit through the strainer, and here now we have a silky smooth tamarind sauce. I'm not going to use all of this because that's just way too much tang. I'm going to use a couple of tablespoons for the recipe and set the rest aside in the fridge. I will use for other recipes. Now we're going to fry the tilapia. So here goes some oil, and I'm using avocado oil. I have some scallions on hand which are about to go bad, so I use them as aromatics into the oil before I place the tilapia in. Now we're going to fry the tilapia, one tilapia at a time, so that we can get the skin to be nice and crispy, leaving the inside and the meats moist and juicy. That was the third and last piece of tilapia. They all look so good. It is now time to prepare the smothering sauce or gravy. And for that, I'm using some cold pressed coconut oil, and I've also placed into the oil some fresh rosemary. Cook that for a few seconds or until the aroma of the rosemary becomes apparent in the air. And then go in with your finely chopped shallot onions. And you want to cook the shallot onions until they are translucent, and then follow up with your minced ginger. Stir that in. The goal is to just sweat these ingredients. You don't want any caramelization just yet, all right? So now we're going to add the minced garlic, followed by the minced Scotch bonnet. And then also you want to season with your salt and all-purpose seasoning or your bouillons. Chicken bouillon will work perfectly here. Stir that in as well. We are cooking on medium heat, by the way. At this point, we have been cooking for under 2 minutes, and I go in with some curry powder, just a small amount of it. I really enjoy the flavor of the Scotch bonnet chili in this recipe. It must not be confused with habanero. They are both chilies and they are both from the same family. However, the Scotch bonnet chili does have a fruitier, sweeter chili taste than the habanero. So if you have that, please go for it. You'll love it in here. Here comes our tamarind sauce. I've added 2.5 tablespoons of it into the wok, and I'm going to stir that in. I'm going to cook it a further 2 minutes or until the sauce starts drying up a bit, and then I'm going to add some homemade tomato sauce. The tomato sauce is sweet, so it's going to help to balance the tanginess from the tamarind sauce. It's also going to bring some color and, of course, some volume, all right, which we need here. Now you want to cook a further 10 minutes of adding the tomato sauce or until you see the oil resurfacing. That should be your indication that the flavors are now perfectly married and the sauce is ready to be smothered onto our perfectly fried tilapia fish. The moment we've all been waiting for is here. Smothering this crispily fried tilapia into the smothering sauce. Oh my gosh, friends. This was good. Simply put, quite delicious, friends. Yes. And you want to flip it over and take your time with this. Don't rush it, all right? Even cover the pot and let it cook on medium heat for about 2 minutes. That will help to seep the smothering sauce into the very flesh of each tilapia, and do one at a time. We served it with some cassava couscous, and when my husband was eating it, he was wearing a grin at the same time. Friends, imagine that. A grin while eating. Yes, this recipe will make you do that. It'll make you do that. It was quite lovely, friends. I hope you give it a shot. My take on Samaki wa Kupaka. Friends and family, this is worth trying, so please make sure you try it. All right, what you get from this here is that tang. It's a unique sweet tang that literally makes your mouth water, because that's what acid that has been expertly meshed with umami and sweetness and savoriness will do to your taste buds, and your mouth will water. Guaranteed, just because scientifically that's proven, okay? And just look at that. It is visually mouth-watering. The smothering sauce must be used for exactly that, friends. Don't digress. Make sure you smother this fish, okay? Take every drop of the sauce and place it on the fish where it belongs. Friends and family, I hope you have learned a thing or two, and more importantly are inspired to try this smothered tilapia, another exciting way of enjoying your tilapia. Served with acheke or cassava couscous, some fresh thinly sliced onions, tomatoes, and serrano chilies. Make it a great day and have fun, especially in that kitchen.
Thank you for joining me today on this exciting Cook Lunch with Me episode. What I have on the menu is one of my family's favorites. We are oven grilling some snapper. Fresh snapper, smells like the ocean, and I have some fresh vegetables to complement it. Let's jump right in. First, let's wash our hands. I have some bell peppers in different colors, red, yellow, orange, as well as some onions. All of that goes onto the sheet pan. I also have these serrano chilies, which I love in here for some heat. So that gets poured on as well. I've just chopped everything up. Now I'm going to mix it up. And then I'm going to drizzle some oil onto this as well.
And for the oil, you're going to need a couple tablespoons of your favorite oil to cook with. I am using extra virgin olive oil, which has the beautiful olive fruity flavor, and that complements all of these fresh ingredients very well. Now, to season and spice things up, I have my homemade lemon pepper seasoning. If you don't have the homemade version, please get some over the shelf, because it brings you the saltiness, the sourness, the sweetness, the savoriness, everything you need in here, and also the kick from the peppercorns. So I have put about a tablespoon on that and combined everything. Now I'm scoring the fish. So I have 2 large pieces of fresh, very fresh red snapper, and I have scored it all the way to the bone so that my lemon pepper seasoning, which is also what I'm going to be using to flavor this fish up, penetrates it to the very bone and takes the deliciousness all the way down there. So you will need your lemon pepper or any seasoning blend of your choice. Also, don't forget to pour some oil onto the fish. All right, and also into the belly and the head as well. We're going to season with some lemon pepper. Now, mind you, the fish has already been cleaned by the fishmonger, so the scales have been removed and it's been gutted. Obviously, I have trimmed all of the fins off and left a little bit of the tail on. I also cut the mouth off as well, and that is just how my mom taught me how to clean fish. Make sure you're patting the lemon pepper seasoning and spice blend into the meat of the fish, and make sure that you get enough of that spice blend also into the belly of the fish. We want the fish to be delicious at every corner and angle. Now, in the belly, you're going to place a sprig of fresh rosemary and some serrano chilies, or you can also use any chili you like to cook with. I have cut the serrano chili into two so that the flavor and the aroma as well as the kick can be extracted much swiftly. Now, I'll be pairing my fish today with a dip inspired by Ghanaian traditional roasted peanuts abomu. So for this dip, you'll need 3 tomatoes, some serrano chilies, and onions that you have wedged. Then sprinkle them with some salt and drizzle some oil onto them as well.
Our fish and vegetables have been marinating for 45 minutes and ready now to go into the oven. We're going to broil it for the first 5 minutes and go back and check.
And I'm placing everything on the top rack. I have my oven on broil at 500 degrees Fahrenheit. So after 5 minutes, I'll go back and check. What I want is some char on all the top ingredients, including the fish. In the meantime, I'm preparing the other components for our lunch today, which is ripened plantain, and we're just boiling it. So I've peeled them, added a little bit of salt, just a pinch, and some water, and onto the stove it goes, covered with the lid for about 10 minutes, and that is all she wrote there. We will need to drain it when it's done cooking and keep the lid on the pan until it's serving time. Now, 5 minutes later, I think I have enough char on these vegetables. So I'm going to remove my tomatoes, the onions, and the serrano chilies for preparing the dip. The fish is going to get flipped and placed back into the oven, still at 500 degrees Fahrenheit, using the broil option to get some more char on the other side. And it will take about 10 more minutes. Red snapper is such a delicate fish that it doesn't take long at all to cook, especially when using the broil option to make it. So here are my roasted peanuts for making the dip. I've poured that into the blender and added the tomatoes, the onions, and the rest of the tomatoes. I'm just going to cut them up. I didn't do that with the first one, and I realized that I was running out of space there. So hey, do what you need to do to make your tools work for you. And that is a pro tip from your sister, Madame. Now I'm adding some fish sauce, and that is actually replacing our traditional momone, our cured fish. And that's just the ingredient you need to bring a ton of umami that literally makes your mouth water. So blend till you have a smooth hummus-like texture. It is gorgeous. It is luscious. It feels good in the mouth, and it tastes even better. So 10 minutes later, our vegetables, or the bed of vegetables, are nicely charred and caramelized, as well as the fish, which is done and cooked to the bone. So set that aside, still in the oven, until serving time to keep it warm. I poured a little bit of olive oil onto my dip, and the plantains are done. They were drained and they're still hot, ready to dig in. Now take one good and close look at the char on that fish. The crunch from the vegetables and the char they also received. And the dip with the charred vegetables as well as the umami you need on this plate from the fish sauce. A complete work of art, friends. Cooking, as I always say, is an act and an art of love. You have to have love, real love in your heart to cook good food. And this is evidence of that. I really hope that this special recipe inspires you to gather these easily and readily accessible ingredients to perform this art and act of love, which I know you will always return to when you need to put something balanced together for yourself and your family. Look at the colors. It is visually appealing and inviting, and it is a balanced plate. You have a lot of protein from the fish and the dip, which, by the way, you can substitute the roasted peanuts if you're allergic to it with roasted almonds or any roasted nuts that you love to cook with. What a beautiful plate. That is art on a plate. Kindly give me a thumbs up if you agree to help promote these videos, as I know you appreciate the heart, the love, and the hard work that goes into bringing them to you. Make it a great day, and I will not miss the opportunity for the world to share another pescatarian recipe with you all. So here I am again, friends and family. Welcome to the Nava's Kitchen. I hope you all are doing absolutely great. I got my hands on the most beautiful red snapper and was going to make my quick and simple fish in chunky gravy sauce, so I thought I better share it. So let's start first with some white peppercorns into my grinder. I'm going to add some red pepper flakes for a little kick, followed by some thyme for citrus notes, and a little bit of paprika. This is not smoked, it's just regular. I also add some garlic powder, followed by some onion powder, and some salt. And we're going to just crush this into a powder. And that is all she wrote. Under 2 minutes, friends, we have a tasty, well-seasoned dry rub. So here is that gorgeous red snapper. Scales are already removed, as you can see, and it's super fresh. Let me show you. The eyes are red and there is no cloudiness going on, so that tells you it's super fresh. It's also been gutted, and when I open the belly like this to show you, it has no smell at all, no fishy smell going on. The flesh is also nice and firm, so when you press on it, it bounces right back. So those are your very important indicators of fresh fish. All right, so when you go to buy a fresh fish, you're looking for the eyes to be nice, red shot, no cloudiness. It must not have any smell. If anything, it should smell only like the ocean. All right, briny. And also the flesh must be firm, so where when you press on it, it bounces right back. All right, okay, so that is a pro tip from your sister, madam. Why the heck not? All right, so I've cut them into my preferred sizes, which are thick steaks, about 1 inch. So you determine how you want them cut. It's all up to you. You can cut them smaller or bigger. Hey, you never know. You might get a smaller piece of fish or a bigger one than I did. All right, the head I removed because I don't need it in this recipe. However, I will use it for my fish stock when that time comes. Now I am dusting the fish with the dry rub and making sure it is well and evenly coated. And your fish must be evenly coated for obvious reasons. I don't even need to say why, right? We want to make sure every bite of this fish tastes good. And now you can do one of two things to allow this fish to marinate and take on the flavor of the dry rub. I placed it in the fridge, that's one option, and I left it uncovered so that it doesn't pull moisture out of the fish. Remember that the dry rub has salt in it, so it is potentially going to do that. If you leave it at room temperature, which is your next option, only do it for 15 minutes. Now I've removed it from the fridge and allowed it to come back to room temperature just before it goes into the hot oil, and that took about 20 minutes. I am now dusting it with a light coating of all-purpose flour. And see how dry the fish remained just because I also left it uncovered when it went into the fridge. So if you do choose to leave it at room temperature, like I stated earlier, 15 minutes is all it needs because fish really doesn't take that long to marinate. Now, the purpose of the all-purpose flour, wow, that's a tongue twister. Determined to twist my tongue. Let's talk about that. But prior to that, I just placed a very small wedge of onion into the hot oil to perfume it and in turn prep the oil for deep frying. So the all-purpose flour will prevent this fish from sticking to the pan when it's deep frying. I move it around a few times just so that I can start developing that beautiful thin crust on the fish, which the all-purpose flour allows for as well. And that crust will eventually become the receptacle for the sauce. So the sauce doesn't just sit on the fish, but becomes part of the fish's flavor. So there's an actual absorption of both flavors, the fish into the sauce and vice versa. When you are creating a recipe that involves more than one component, you must always think of how to ultimately arrive at a unified dish. This is one of the ways that our culinary educators taught us to create unity in the end if our dish involves more than one component, whomever they might be, our parents, our cousins, uncles, our aunties, our friends, our culinary instructors at a culinary institution, just whoever they might be. Now, you did notice that I also did not overcrowd the wok that I am deep frying in so that our fish can fry sooner than later. I'm frying the next batch, remove the first, and once they were done frying, I placed them on a paper towel lined platter to absorb any excess oil. We're done with the fish preparation. Now let's move on to the next preparation, which is our chunky vegetable gravy. And for that, we're going to need green and red bell pepper without their seeds and 1 jalapeno chili, also without the seeds. And we're going to use our food processor today to create that chunk. And that looks perfectly chunky to me. I reserved about 5 tablespoons of some of the oil I fried the fish in, and I have placed in it a tablespoon of finely minced garlic as well as some Thai chilies, also minced. I am revitalizing the fragrance in this oil by infusing the 2 ingredients in there. And the next ingredient is some shallot onions, a whole lot of it. I had 8 of the shallot onions that I thinly sliced. The more onions you have in this recipe, the happier you will be. That sweetness is everything in here, all right? Now I add some salt and crushed black pepper, and pretty much that's all I used to season this. Because this recipe does not require too much. It's not high maintenance. The fewer the ingredients, the tastier it is, I promise you. And the only way you'll know and testify is by giving this recipe a shot. I hope you do. Now the chunky peppers are going in. I've also cranked up the heat at this point. So I cooked the onions for about 2 minutes. And now the peppers have gone in. Because I've already seasoned with salt, I really don't want the moisture in the peppers to start getting pulled out. So I've cranked the heat up to the highest point. So I'm basically stir frying these ingredients right now. At this point, you can taste, and if you need more salt, please season to your preference, because you just included a whole layer of fresh ingredients. So you might need to season some more. So I've just added some more salt. All right. And it tastes perfect now. So the fish pieces are going in, And I'm just going to toss everything together to create that marriage we were talking about. We've created unity in this wok, and it's ready to serve. It is visually inviting. It tastes scrumptious, very satisfying, delectable, very simple to put together. Everyday ingredients, clean flavors, can't go wrong with that. And here is that yellow buttery rice. I shared this recipe a while ago, and I have linked it below. It's in a video where I also shared 4 other recipes with rice. So just find it in there and enjoy it. Or watch the entire video. You might learn 4 other ways to cook your rice. And look at this gravy. It was good. It was satisfying. My children, my husband, they love this dish. It's so easy to put together. It's quick. It's nourishing. It is satisfying. It's so enjoyable. And there is a little crunch still in the vegetables. I mean, who doesn't love some crunch? Just saying. Thanks for watching. Make it a great day and have fun, especially in this fish stew or fish gravy will blow your socks right off and will send those taste buds of yours into a dancing mode for a hot minute, friends. I took a simplistic approach to this one and you'll love it. Seasoning our grouper fish with salt, curry powder, vegetable bouillon, and crushed black pepper. I'm using grouper fish for this recipe. However, you can use any fish you like. I just recommend that you avoid fish that is too oily. So fish like mackerel, salmon, fish like that, I don't recommend for this recipe. So a great substitute for the grouper would be snapper or bass. Sprinkle each fish at a time with your dry seasoning mix to ensure that the distribution of the seasoning is evenly done across the board. The more onions in this recipe, the better. And I've chopped them real small versus blending, because blending can make your onions harsh in taste, especially when you're using a lot. I'm using cold pressed coconut oil for this recipe, and those are curry leaves. You can replace those or substitute with basil or bay. Now fry them on gentle heat until fragrant. Then go in with all of your onions. Now season this layer with some salt and crushed black pepper and continue frying on gentle heat until the onions become a golden color, which should take approximately 10 minutes. Now there is the color you're looking for, a very light golden color. Now add your ginger and garlic paste right now. It's a heaping tablespoonful of equal parts ginger and garlic. Stir that in and fry for an additional minute, still cooking on gentle heat, and then add your tomato paste. Now with the tomato paste, you're going to cook an additional 5 to 6 minutes. And when the tomato paste has disintegrated into smaller pieces and the oil has also turned color, just like so. Now go in with your curry powder, which is a one-stop shop for all the spices and seasonings you need in a recipe like this. Now the rest of your seasoning can go in at this point. I have vegetable bouillon, so that goes in. You want to fry this now for about an extra minute. It looks well fried and it's giving off that inviting aroma. You want to go in now with your tomato sauce. Homemade is best. However, store-bought will work just as well. I had a quick batch of homemade tomato sauce I recently made, which I hit with a lot of chilies. The chilies, though, I removed the seeds, so they have that beautiful chili flavor we all love without the heat. Now cover with the lid, leaving a small vent to allow the stew to fry down. It's still cooking on gentle heat. Now gentle heat to my stove is 3. Okay, so my stove, the heat level goes up to 10 and I'm cooking on 3. Now you want to go in after about 10 minutes and stir it. All right, now because I'm using tomato sauce that has been cooked down, this sauce will be ready in no time. Now I must say, if you end up using store-bought tomato sauce, then you want to add at least 1 habanero chili or chili that you can tolerate. If you don't like the heat, then just remove the seeds, but you do want that chili flavor in the sauce. It has been frying for about 10 minutes. The oil started coming back onto the top, which is a great indication that your stew is frying perfectly. Now we're going to fry the fish. Now I'm going to coat the fish very lightly with some all-purpose flour. I will season the flour with some salt and crushed black pepper. Now it may seem that this fish tomato gravy is being prepared in the reverse because I'm now frying the fish. We typically would fry the fish first and then cook the gravy in that same oil. But I use cold pressed coconut oil to cook the stew because I want that coconut flavor in the stew. It is amazing. Cold pressed coconut oil though, you want to not use to deep fry. Why? Because it doesn't have a high smoking point. On the other hand, however, if I was shallow frying or pan frying the fish, then I could definitely use the cold pressed coconut oil. But I am deep frying, so I have to use cooking oil that has a high smoking point. So make sure that you're dusting off the excess flour from the fish before it goes into the oil. The flour is just to help the skin to become crispy and for the fish to fry quickly, leaving the inside nice, moist, and tender. And that's it. It's done. Golden brown is what you're looking for. It is crispy outside, just the way you should have it. And the stew has been frying for about 30 minutes since adding the tomato sauce on very gentle heat. And so now the oil is on the top, indicating it's ready. We can add whatever else to it, including the fish. So I've added some more chilies. I left them whole with the heads on because I love that chili fragrance. It's like perfume to your stew. And it also serves as a garnish. It is a thing we do in West African cooking, and it's gorgeous. Now the fish is done. We're taking them all out of the oil, and now they're going to go into the stew. This was tasty. That coconut oil, if you like coconut flavor, you must use your cold pressed coconut oil, okay, to make this sauce, this gravy, this stew, however you want to call it. But in Ghana, we'll call something like this gravy, tomato-based gravy. Insert your fish or submerge them into the stew so they can take on the flavor of each other. And let me tell you, friends, this fish gravy was groovy. Quite exciting in taste, friends, and you must try this recipe. Of course, this goes very well with rice, although you may have it with any pairing of your choice. I also had a tomato and cucumber salad on the side, and it was amazing. Each bite was heavenly. Friends, just take a look at this. Fluffy rice with your gravy and your fish and your salad. The salad was lightly dressed with a very simple vinaigrette recipe coming up very soon. Thank you so much, friends, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and will be trying this recipe and returning with your feedback. And you see what else? Yes, Zobo Sorrel Sobolo drink, freshly made, represented at this mini party, and all of it was quite exciting. Most times the simple things are the best things, and this one does not fall short of that statement. Now on this day we had this beautiful dish for lunch. It was also lunchtime for my daughter Farah, who is a freshman in high school. She made the cut for her swimming team, and she is killing it in that swimming team, friends. And you know, athletes, they need to eat well and properly. So we packed her a plate, and my husband and I surprised her in school with it, and she enjoyed every single bite. Thanks for watching. Make it a great day and have fun, especially in that kitchen.
Thank you, beautiful person, for watching the video all the way to the end. Kindly leave me a comment and subscribe down below. And don't forget to share the video as well. Also, watch more videos. It is chop time, and here in Anaba's kitchen, chop time is always yes, friends. So pull up a chair. We are all friends and family here.